Moving trucks appeared at Royal Lodge this week, after months of resistance. The end may finally be near. Prince Andrew has spent the better part of a year refusing to acknowledge reality. Conversations went nowhere. Negotiations stalled repeatedly. Palace officials describe his approach as complete disengagement from the inevitable. But something has changed. The first indication didn't come from Buckingham Palace. It came from rural Norfolk, where construction crews arrived at a long-vacant farmhouse. Marsh Farm, located on the Sandringham estate, suddenly became a hub of activity. New perimeter barriers went up, modern lighting systems were installed, heavy equipment rolled in to handle structural repairs that had been neglected for years. Royal watchers immediately understood what this meant. Then came the definitive moment. A removal company vehicle, contracted by the royal household, pulled through the gates of Royal Lodge itself. This wasn't a routine delivery or maintenance visit. This was the beginning of an exit. Royal Lodge has served as Andrew's refuge for years. The magnificent 30-room mansion became his sanctuary after public life became impossible, even without official duties, patronages, or military appointments. He maintained the lifestyle he'd always known. That era is ending. Inside the estate, chaos has taken over. Storage containers fill hallways. Documents cover every available surface. Decades worth of correspondence, official papers, personal photographs, and collected memorabilia are being processed. Under intense time pressure, people close to the situation describe the environment as emotionally charged. Andrew has only recently come to terms with the fact that his entire life won't fit into his next residence. Marsh Farm couldn't be more different from what he's leaving behind. The red brick structure offers 5 bedrooms, basic reception areas, and a modest kitchen. There's no space for household staff to live on site. Garage capacity is severely limited. The grandeur Andrew has experienced throughout his adult life simply doesn't exist there. Sources say Andrew has received advice about downsizing and simplifying. The guidance has been largely ignored or resisted. His coping mechanism appears to be complete denial, keeping packing supplies away from his private quarters and avoiding direct confrontation with what's unfolding. Sarah Ferguson remains deeply involved despite their marriage ending 3 decades ago. Their bond has proven surprisingly durable across the years. She's been instrumental in helping sort through possessions. Her presence provides emotional stability when tensions escalate. Far beyond clothes
Additional
and furniture.
staff members
Box
have been brought in to manage the enormous
personal
scope of
letters,
the undertaking.
government documents, and correspondence accumulated during a lifetime of royal service. Some materials, insiders suggest, are particularly sensitive in nature. Not everything will be permitted to leave the property. One of the most dramatic developments involved Andrew's personal firearms collection. An avid shooting enthusiast, he'd received expensive weapons as gifts from affluent friends over many years. These were removed from Royal Lodge last November, simultaneously. Andrew surrendered his firearms license following a request from Metropolitan Police. Officers coordinated with the King's private secretary before making the journey to Windsor for what witnesses describe as a tense and confrontational meeting. Andrew reportedly became enraged. Voices were raised significantly. Tempers reached a boiling point. Only Sarah Ferguson's intervention prevented the situation from escalating further. Eventually, Andrew relinquished the weapons. In an extraordinary arrangement, they weren't confiscated by authorities but instead transferred into the King's personal custody. The unusual nature of this transaction reveals how tightly regulated Andrew's life has become. The firearms in question were Andrew's private property, distinct from weapons kept in royal armories at Sandringham and Balmoral. Those remain accessible to him only under direct supervision. His ceremonial blades, which don't require licensing, stayed with him. Still, the symbolism couldn't be clearer. Another privilege removed. Another boundary drawn around his shrinking world. Marsh Farm has stood largely empty for years. Portions of the structure date to the 1700s. Historically, it provided housing for agricultural workers and served as a community gathering space in decades past, hosting charity events, social dances, and youth organization activities. Now it's undergoing rapid transformation. A 6-foot security barrier has replaced deteriorated wire fencing. Surveillance cameras and lighting systems designed for security have been added throughout. There's speculation that airspace restrictions have been requested to prevent unauthorized drone surveillance. Technical specialists have been installing communications infrastructure. Substantial construction machinery has addressed drainage problems that developed during years of neglect. The property sits in Wolverton, an isolated village of approximately 200 residents. It's quiet, remote, and completely disconnected from the Windsor social ecosystem Andrew has inhabited for decades. Recreational options are limited to countryside walks or a nearby golf facility. Without on-site staff accommodations, Andrew cannot bring his trusted personal assistants. Instead, the king will provide periodic support services from Sandringham, groundskeeping and meal preparation as circumstances require. This arrangement has generated significant dissatisfaction from Andrew, who has grown accustomed to constant, discreet personal service. Limited vehicle storage capacity presents another frustration, though renovations may eventually address this concern. Despite all the visible activity, insiders report Andrew has not formally accepted the relocation. The farmhouse still needs considerable work, and discussions about specific details continue. Meanwhile, speculation grows that Andrew will be placed in temporary housing soon. The objective, according to one source, is preventing him from witnessing the systematic dismantling of his existence. Andrew's personal living areas at Royal Lodge have been kept clear of packing materials. A dedicated staff member has been assigned to oversee the process, allowing Andrew to maintain psychological distance from the reality surrounding him. One personal item that won't make the journey is his notorious stuffed animal collection. The extensive arrangement has been largely dispersed, with Andrew retaining only a single small plush monkey from years past. Beyond practical considerations, serious concerns exist within the family about the emotional and psychological consequences of this isolation. Don't go anywhere. The isolation at Marsh Farm represents more than a smaller house. It represents complete disconnection. Andrew has no established relationships in the Norfolk area. The Windsor network he's depended on for decades becomes inaccessible. Even Heathrow Airport, which enabled his frequent international travel, is now considerably more difficult to reach. According to insiders, Princess Anne has expressed particularly strong concerns. She reportedly believes forcing her brother into near-total isolation could be strategically unwise. Prince Edward shares some of these reservations. Family arguments are reportedly occurring not just between Andrew and the king, but between the king and other senior royals as well. Some family members feel the approach has been excessively punitive. Andrew's defenders note, he has never been convicted of any criminal offense and continues to deny all allegations connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Sources claim King Charles himself has privately wrestled with the situation. He's described as conflicted about removing his younger brother's remaining royal privileges and status. The late Queen Elizabeth, it's reported, never wavered in her belief in Andrew's innocence. King Charles III, however, faces pressure from Queen Camilla and Prince William, both of whom reportedly favor significantly stricter measures. This tension has already produced some reversals. Andrew's access to royal stables at Windsor has been quietly restored, a small concession amid broader restrictions. Andrew would prefer Wood Farm as a permanent home. It offers more space and preserves more dignity. That option has been definitively rejected. York Cottage was briefly considered but dismissed due to its size, maintenance costs, and its name now deeply inappropriate given Andrew's loss of the York title. Friends suggest Andrew is unlikely to remain in Norfolk full-time. Persistent rumors indicate he may spend extended periods overseas, particularly in the Middle East. Bahrain is mentioned specifically, where he maintains long-standing connections and where his daughters have visited regularly. Sarah Ferguson appears to be adapting more quickly. Many of her possessions, along with items belonging to Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, have been moved to Beatrice's Cotswolds residence. Whether this arrangement is temporary or permanent remains unclear. Despite divorcing in 1996, Andrew and Sarah maintain an unusually close relationship. They continue to mark their wedding anniversary annually. This July will represent 40 years since their celebrated marriage. At that time, they appeared to have everything. Now, Andrew's departure from Royal Lodge marks the conclusion of that chapter and the beginning of a drastically quieter, smaller existence, one lived largely outside public view. The teddy bear detail deserves closer examination. For years, Andrew maintained an elaborate collection of stuffed animals that staff were required to arrange on his bed daily, according to specific instructions. The collection became emblematic of his peculiar demands and disconnection from typical adult behavior. Its dismantling, with Andrew keeping only one small item, represents a forced confrontation with reality. But insiders say he initially resisted partying with many more pieces, arguing emotionally over individual items. Eventually, under pressure from Sarah and staff members, he surrendered all but the single memento. These small battles over possessions reflect the larger psychological struggle Andrew faces. Each item represents fragments of identity, status, and normalcy being systematically removed. The firearms, the vast estate, the staff, the stuffed animals. Each loss diminishes him incrementally. Eventually, the question becomes unavoidable. What remains when everything that defined your existence is gone? Andrew is answering that question in real time, and the royal family is discovering that containing a desperate, diminished family member is far more complex than simply relocating him to a smaller property. The packing chaos extends beyond physical items. Andrew has been reviewing decades of financial records, personal correspondence, and official documentation. Some materials relate to his business activities and international relationships. Staff members describe Andrew as increasingly agitated during this process. Certain documents have been separated into specialized containers that Andrew personally supervises. He refuses to allow others to handle these particular boxes. What do they contain? The boxes being carefully managed at Royal Lodge may hold more than just papers. They may contain leverage information, accumulated over 60+ years at the monarchy's center. Some correspondence could prove embarrassing to living public figures. Some documents might have value simply as historical records. All of it represents potential assets if Andrew becomes sufficiently desperate to exploit them. The Marsh Farm plan assumes Andrew will accept reduced circumstances quietly, that he'll fade from public consciousness and stop creating problems for the institution. But every indication suggests otherwise. The resistance, the delays, the overseas property investigations, these are actions suggesting preparation for confrontation, not capitulation. Stay tuned, because what Andrew might do next could shake the entire institution to its foundation. The greatest threat isn't what Andrew has lost, it's what he still possesses. Decades of royal access have given Andrew extensive knowledge about people, relationships, and situations that powerful figures would prefer remain private. His years as UK Special Representative for Trade and Investment connected him with controversial international figures across multiple continents. Financial arrangements that sustained his lifestyle for years have recently been severed. Wealthy benefactors who once valued royal connections have quietly distanced themselves following the Epstein scandal and Andrew's disastrous BBC interview. The financial impact has been immediate and severe. Without regular income streams, maintaining even a modest existence becomes challenging. The king has reportedly allocated a limited allowance from the Duchy of Lancaster sufficient for basic expenses at Marsh Farm but nowhere close to Andrew's historical spending levels. Security costs alone present significant problems. Even at Sandringham, Andrew requires protection. Metropolitan Police have scaled back their commitment, shifting more responsibility to private security arrangements. Private security is extraordinarily expensive. Unless Andrew accepts complete dependence on the king's generosity, he requires independent income sources. This is precisely what has Princess Anne and Prince Edward so concerned. A financially independent Andrew means an Andrew with leverage, freedom to make choices the family cannot control, freedom to monetize knowledge and access accumulated across decades. Literary agents and media representatives have approached Andrew with lucrative proposals. A revealing memoir could command advances in the millions. Exclusive interviews with major broadcasters could generate substantial fees. The palace's nightmare scenario is Andrew accepting one of these offers out of financial necessity. Sarah Ferguson has already tested these waters somewhat. Her recent media appearances and hints about potential projects have been interpreted as exploratory moves, gauging public and palace reaction to more revealing content. So far, palace pressure has prevented her from crossing certain boundaries, but insiders say that could change if financial circumstances become sufficiently desperate. The relocation was supposed to happen quietly. Andrew would downsize with dignity, media attention would fade, and the royal family could move forward without this persistent distraction. Instead, the removal trucks and construction activity have created exactly what the palace hoped to avoid: renewed focus on Andrew and questions about his future. Those questions now extend to financial matters that nobody wants to address publicly. How will Andrew maintain any lifestyle without regular income? Who, if anyone, continues providing financial support? What arrangements exist that remain hidden from public view? The documents being carefully sorted at Royal Lodge likely contain exactly the type of material that could generate income: personal correspondence, photographs, records from his years representing British trade interests. Some content might prove embarrassing to living public figures. Some holds value simply as historical documentation. all represents potential financial assets if Andrew becomes desperate enough to exploit them. The Windsor family is fracturing in ways not seen for generations. Behind carefully managed public appearances, a bitter dispute is unfolding. Sibling loyalties are being tested. The family's operational dynamics face serious threat. William sees no room for compromise. The Prince of Wales has reportedly told his father that every concession to Andrew undermines institutional credibility. Public opinion has turned decisively against Andrew. Showing him any consideration, William argues, makes the entire monarchy appear tone-deaf and insensitive. Camilla agrees completely. The Queen Consort reportedly views Andrew as fundamentally selfish and destructive. She has encouraged Charles to maintain the firmest possible position and has shown minimal sympathy for Andrew's situation. This creates an impossible position for Charles. Between his siblings' arguments for compassion and his wife and heir's demands for uncompromising severity, Beatrice and Eugenie find themselves in impossible positions as well. Defending their father risks estrangement from William and the future power center of the monarchy. Abandoning him means betraying family loyalty during his lowest moment. Both daughters have attempted mediation with limited success. Beatrice particularly has tried maintaining relationships across the family divide, but the effort has taken an emotional toll. The upcoming 40th anniversary of Andrew and Sarah's wedding adds another complicated dimension. Despite their divorce, they've continued marking this date privately. How they choose to acknowledge it this July, if at all, will signal their future intentions. Rumors persist that Sarah has considered relocating abroad with Andrew. If he chooses that path, her own financial pressures and diminishing UK prospects make such a move increasingly appealing, but leaving Britain would represent a final break with the royal family. A declaration that Andrew and Sarah are choosing independence over institutional loyalty. The king's advisors are acutely aware of this risk. Quiet approaches have reportedly been made to Sarah, offering financial assistance in exchange for her continued UK presence and her help keeping Andrew stable and compliant. These negotiations continue and may ultimately determine whether Andrew accepts Marsh Farm or establishes himself on foreign soil. The Marsh Farm timeline keeps shifting. Renovations progress, but the property still needs significant work. The target completion date before Andrew's February 19th birthday looks increasingly unrealistic. Temporary accommodations may become necessary, further prolonging uncertainty and Andrew's ability to resist final transition. Royal Lodge itself sits increasingly empty. Andrew has been spending time away from the property, avoiding the packing process and the emotional weight of dismantling his life there. The mansion will ultimately be reassigned, though to whom remains unclear. Speculation suggests it might house working royals needing larger family accommodations, or be converted to entirely different use. What's certain is that Andrew's era there has ended, whether he's formally departed or not. If this story revealed something you didn't know, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more inside royal coverage. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Has the family handled this situation appropriately, or has it gone too far? More exclusive revelations coming your way soon.